You already know the exact moment you lost yourself. It wasn't when they stopped texting back. It was earlier, the second you started rewriting your own personality to keep them interested. Most people never notice that moment happen. You will by the end of this video. Think about what you actually do when someone starts pulling away. You don't walk away too. You lean in harder. You reread the conversation, looking for the exact place you did something wrong. You start editing yourself a little less needy here, a little funnier there, a little more agreeable, a little more available, as if the right version of you might finally be enough to make them stay. You call it patience, understanding, giving them space. But underneath that patience is a quieter, more humiliating hope that if you wait long enough, want it badly enough, prove yourself worthy enough, they will finally choose you the way you already chose them. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. The moment you start performing for someone's attention, you hand them something enormous, the ability to determine how you feel about yourself. Their silence becomes your anxiety. Their mixed signal becomes your obsession. Their indifference becomes proof, in your mind, of your own inadequacy. You didn't lose your peace when they pulled away. You lost it the moment you decided your peace depended on their decision at all. And this isn't a story about someone else's cruelty. Most people we chase aren't villains. They're just making choices based on their own timing, their own capacity, their own unfinished business, none of which was ever yours to command. The pain isn't really coming from them. It's coming from the gap between what you're offering and what they're choosing to receive. The wider that gap gets, the harder some people try to close it through effort, as if enough effort could override someone else's free will. You'd think the fix is obvious, just stop texting them, stop checking your phone, move on. But that's not where the real problem lives. The real problem is a belief so old you've probably never questioned it, that you're supposed to have some say in whether another person wants you. Almost 2,000 years before red receipts existed, a man born into slavery figured out why that belief destroys people. Epictetus opened his teaching with one brutal distinction. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Our judgments, our choices, our effort, our desire, these are ours. Everything else, including other people's decisions, belongs to them. Apply that directly to the person you're chasing. Their attraction to you is not up to you. Their attention is not up to you. Their timing, their loyalty, their willingness to choose you back, none of it is up to you. What is up to you is smaller and far more powerful than it looks. Your actions, your standards, your boundaries, where you put your energy. Most people spend years fighting for control over the one column that was never theirs, while abandoning the column that always was. That's the first trap. Here's the second one, and it's the one that actually does the damage. When someone doesn't choose you, the mind reaches for the easiest explanation available, and the easiest explanation is always you. I wasn't attractive enough. I wasn't interesting enough. Something about me is fundamentally lacking. Notice what's happening in that sentence. You're taking a decision that reflects someone else's preferences, someone else's timing, someone else's unresolved history, and quietly converting it into a verdict on your worth as a person. That conversion isn't accurate. It isn't fair. And it's entirely optional. A person choosing someone else, or choosing no one, is information about two lives that didn't line up the way one of you hoped. It is not a measurement of your value. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, in the private notebook that became Meditations, that we suffer more from our opinion of a thing than from the thing itself. The rejection is a fact. I'm not enough is a story you attach to that fact afterward, and a story is something you're always allowed to put down. Knowing that doesn't stop the chasing by itself, though. Knowing it and living it are two different things. And the gap between them almost destroyed a man named Daniel. Not his real name, but his situation is common enough that you'll probably recognize it. Daniel spent 4 months with a woman who never quite committed to anything. Some weeks she'd text constantly, plan future trips, call him at midnight to talk about nothing. Other weeks, she'd go quiet for days, offering no explanation, expecting none of it to be questioned. Daniel's mood started running on her schedule instead of his own. Good week, good mood. Silent week, spiraling week. He reread old messages for clues. He asked mutual friends careful, indirect questions. He told himself he was being mature by not pushing, but really, he was terrified that pushing would make her leave entirely. So he made himself smaller instead, and called it patience. Nothing about the moment that changed him was dramatic. He was sitting at a red light, phone face down on the passenger seat, running the math again, how many hours since her last message, what that might mean, what he could send that wouldn't look needy. And he caught himself, almost like watching a stranger, and thought, I have turned my own peace of mind into her homework and she isn't even doing the assignment. He didn't send an angry text. He didn't demand clarity. He simply stopped initiating, stopped auditioning, stopped rearranging his week around her unpredictability. The anxiety didn't vanish, it changed shape. From a live wound into a dull ache he could actually function around. Weeks later, something stranger than relief showed up. He didn't miss her nearly as much as he expected to, which points to a truth most people never sit still long enough to examine. You rarely miss the actual person as much as you miss what they represented. You miss the possibility. You miss the future you'd already started building in your head. You miss the feeling of being chosen, of mattering that much to someone. Sometimes you even miss the version of yourself you were hoping they'd confirm, the attractive one, the enough one, the one worth staying for. Strip all of that away, and what you're grieving isn't a relationship. It's an idea you built out of someone else's inconsistency. So let's be precise about what the Stoic answer actually is, because it gets misunderstood constantly. It is not becoming cold. It is not pretending you don't care. Seneca wrote to grieving friends with real tenderness, the Stoics were never emotionless statues. Detachment means refusing to place your inner peace in the hands of something you cannot control. You can care deeply and still refuse to beg. You can love someone and still refuse to abandon yourself to keep them. That's not indifference. That's self-respect operating at full strength, and it looks like 4 specific things in practice. Stop auditioning. Every time you adjust who you are hoping it will make someone stay, you're telling yourself, quietly, that the real you wasn't enough to begin with. Daniel did this for 4 months, softer here, funnier there, always trying out a new version of himself for an audience that never told him what it wanted. The moment you stop auditioning is the moment you stop needing a verdict. You are not a rough draft waiting for someone's approval. Stop decoding, obsessively analyzing a reply's timing. Its length, its punctuation is not intimacy, it's interrogation of a person who never agreed to be cross-examined. A period instead of an exclamation point is not a message. It's usually just a period. The mind that spends its nights decoding a text message is a mind that has handed its peace over to a stranger's punctuation. Match effort. Don't manufacture it. If you're the only one initiating, the only one planning, the only one closing the distance, you're not in a relationship, you're carrying one. Mutual effort isn't a bonus feature of connection. It's the definition of it. When effort only moves in one direction, stop supplying both directions and see what's actually there. Return your attention to your own life. Attention is the most valuable thing you own. And you've been handing yours to someone who isn't spending it on you. The Stoics called this focus on what's yours to control, and your work, your body, your friendships, your growth, all grow the instant you stop feeding them to someone else's silence. Here is the realization that changes everything, and it's worth sitting with. The goal was never to make them choose you. That target was always wrong, because it was never yours to hit. The real goal available to you this entire time was to become someone who no longer needs to be chosen in order to feel whole. Not someone who stops wanting connection. Someone who stops outsourcing their worth to get it. You will keep meeting people who don't choose you. That will happen for the rest of your life, because that's simply what it means to exist among other people with their own minds. But you decide what it means about you. It can mean you weren't enough, or it can mean 2 lives didn't align and you remain entirely enough, standing exactly where you are, needing no one's permission to know it. Let them go. Not with bitterness, not with a performance of not caring, and not because you want them to regret it. Let them go with the quiet, adult understanding that your peace was never supposed to live in someone else's hands to begin with. It was always waiting for you to come back and claim it.